In 2019, it seems like there's a lot of personalities famous for being, well, famous. And I get it. As children, we're all told we can do anything, and it seems like doing anything is good enough to achieve wealth and fame these days. This isn't exactly new, it's only encouraged by social media, and I mean, this is coming from a musician who has a YouTube channel.
That's right, you're a big fat phony!
Even your favorite bands from the heyday of classic rock only had one goal in mind: becoming extremely rich and extremely famous. But what if there was someone who had this possibility staring them right in the face? Someone so talented that it would seem criminal if he didn't become a stadium act who sold out shows in front of hundreds of thousands. What if he just said no? What if he chose the exciting option? The foolish option? Staying true to his art? This person is Neil Young. Look, we all love Neil Young. Your mom loves Neil Young, your grandparents love Neil Young. Who can forget timeless songs like this?
Oh man, look at my life, I'm a lot like you were.
Or this?
Gone, gone, the damage done.
Or this?
I've been a miner for a heart of gold.
These are all mainstays of commercial rock radio, and they all happen to be on his smash hit album Harvest, released in 1972, which rocketed him to the #1 spot in the charts and ended up going 3 times platinum, much in the realm of melodic soft rock acts like the Eagles or Jackson Browne. Wouldn't this make anyone happy? You try your best to reach an audience, and you manage to do it without giving up your core self, without compromise. Well, what if you just fell into this? What if this was never your dream? What if you weren't a folk artist, but a rebellious rock and roller who just shoot off your band because you felt like making your new album acoustic, and it all paid off? Suddenly you were one of the biggest acts in the world. Where would you go from here?
Hear that echo?
Neil decided to stare all of it in the face and shrug. What makes On the Beach so unique is that it's the rare rejection of stardom that doesn't make it obvious. There are plenty of these albums that make rejection obvious, stretching the songs and being deliberately odd. On the Beach is just good songs that don't try too hard. He wouldn't lose his honesty and have it be swept away by his success, and you can hear it.
I need a crowd of people, but I can't face them day to day.
The Ditch trilogy has gone on to represent Neil Young as strongly as after the Gold Rush and Harvest, but at the time, it was considered a huge mistake. Neil has said of the series, "Heart of Gold is the song that put me in the middle of the road. Traveling there soon became a bore, so I headed for the ditch. A rougher ride, but I saw more interesting people there." Neil's issues with fame weren't the only driving force behind these classic albums. There was another huge one that by 1972 had become a constant in the rock world: drug-related deaths. 1967 was a beautiful time for drug culture. At that point, it was about awakening a personal conscience, becoming a more aware individual. This was short-lived, and in a couple years that shifted from personal enlightenment to self-harm and destruction. Drug abuse would prematurely kill 2 people in Neil's life: Crazy Horse guitarist Danny Whitten and roadie Bruce Berry, the latter being made famous by 1975's title track, Tonight's the Night. His dislike for drug users is painfully obvious, and he spends a fair amount of time mocking the culture. Take the opening line to Time Fades Away. 14 junkies, too weak to work. Sounds like a children's story outlining the dangers of taking drugs, which is ironic because Neil is infamous for his cocaine habit during the 70s. The bulk of his ire, though, is focused on his audience, on his fans. Take a look at On the Beach's closing track, Ambulance Blues.
I guess I'll call it sickness gone.
hard to say the meaning of this song. An ambulance can only go so fast. It's easy to get buried in the past.
Nowhere is this more obvious in his touring stories at the time. After hitting the road to tour Harvest, a tour in which fans came to see, songs that had been released, we're lucky enough to hear his new album in full, with Neil promising, "If you just sit through this, I'll play you songs you've heard before." After finishing this set, he proceeded to restart the exact same set from the beginning, quite possibly the ultimate troll move in music history. Listen, I'm not breaking new ground by saying everyone should listen to these 3 albums if they haven't before. They're all critically acclaimed and a big part of his legacy. I just don't think everyone knows the whole story. The real story. The story of a young man who got spooked by what he saw his life becoming and quickly hit the brakes, quickly turned left instead of continuing straight. Someone who wanted to write his own story, not let others decide what it would be. And I think that's a pretty brave thing to do.
You know, that's the thing. A lot of the questions people ask me today, they show me that people think about musicians and they think that musicians make music as a means to an end, like they have a goal in mind, like they're ambitious to get here or there or sell this or sell that. And I think really a lot of the musicians, are kind of being trained that that's what's expected of them, is to perform in a certain market.
Wow, wasn't that a great video? If you enjoyed, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button to validate my existence and build up my ego even more to newer, more dangerous levels.